Hello again. The first time you saw me, I spoke to you about the AP as a rallying point, the advanced placement program in Italian as a rallying point around which we can gather and help save not only the program, but perhaps that channel that allows us to access Italian culture, Italian history, and indeed Italian American history, because as a poet who's no longer with us, Felix Stefanile, said, using some fancy words, there's no ontology without archaeology. And I think really if we don't know where we came from, we really don't know who we are at this point. So what I'd like to just throw out this time is the idea of philanthropy, and more specifically cultural philanthropy. We live in a world in which we find names of people on numerous buildings, names of people on rooms in those buildings, on libraries in those buildings, on screening rooms, et cetera, et cetera. I must say that in my sort of unscientific study in this last year or two, there are very, very few Italian names. And that, I think, is one of our basic challenges that we need to tackle in the future. And that is the lack of a cultural philanthropy. Now, Italian Americans, when it comes to social issues, when it comes to religious issues, when you think of all the money that Italian Americans over the decades have donated to the church, have donated to some more scientific issues such as medicine, we do very well. We do exceedingly well, perhaps one might say. But where I think we are really lacking is in cultural philanthropy. We do not find on the university campuses, colleges and universities, those buildings of libraries, screening halls, things of that sort, with Italian names. They're not as prominent as other names. We do not find centers for Italian and/or Italian American studies endowed by so-and-so and so-and-so. This is where we need to go. We need to take sort of our culture into the university so that students of all ethnicities, not just Italian Americans, but of all ethnicities, have access to our culture, that our cultural artifacts, as we might call them, films, books, are included in the curriculum of whatever department students may be in, and that we have that access. That is, we have that sense of dissemination that takes place. To do that, we need some help from the outside. It's not going to happen spontaneously, and the way it's going to happen is for someone to endow, for example, a professorship, for someone to endow a Center for Italian Studies, or more specifically for us, a Center for Italian American Studies. That way, courses can be developed, they become part of the curriculum, and as I said before, what happens is not just Italian Americans, but students of all ethnicities, of all races, take those courses. And in that sense, when they then become, if they do become teachers, they then use those same Italian or Italian American cultural products, the films, the books of fiction, the novels, the poetry, etc. They use those in their classes on, for example, American literature, American history, and things of that sort. So we need to start thinking in terms of a cultural philanthropy for the survival of our culture, just as we need to think in terms of social philanthropy or medical philanthropy or even religious philanthropy. And in tying it in to how I started this discussion here, brief discussion, and to tie it into what I used as a metaphor for a rallying point last time, that is the advanced placement program in Italian, I would say that that might indeed be one place where someone can think in terms of a philanthropical sort of move, and that is to find out, and we know, we're pretty sure, actually we know that the opportunity is available to see if perhaps we can have, and I'm going to use this term, this word, it's the sort of Mr. So-and-so in Italian, if we can have the Giovanni Pinco Pallino Advanced Placement Program in Italian. Someone comes forth with a significant amount of money to endow that. I think that can happen. So more thoughts, more food for thought. And again, there's an email address to which you can send some of your comments and thoughts. And again, as we say in Italian, arrivederci alla prossima puntata.